So today's topic of discussion is storage. Storage is one of those technology spaces that's changed pretty dramatically over the past decade or so. We've gone from consuming lots of floor tiles, running out of real estate, to implementing new technologies like virtualization, flash, high capacity drives. And that let us dramatically shrink the amount of space we're actually consuming in the data center, not to mention all the power and cooling savings that we get on top of that. It's been a pretty big game changer. I've actually known companies in the past that weren't able to grow the data center anymore because the local power companies actually were out of power. In order for them to produce, new power options, it was a 30-year investment. So, a lot has changed in this space. Mike, why don't you talk about some of the things that you think have emerged that are really some of the cooler technologies we're seeing today?
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of horsepower that they're able to cram into storage systems now, even entry-level systems, it's unreal. You're seeing technologies like NVMe and SCM, true game changers, like you said, in technology. A lot of people, a lot of experts, including ourselves, are predicting that SCM is going to do to Flash what Flash did to spinning disks. For example, like Dell's Unity XT line, you can put NVMe drives inside of the Unity XT now, and that's entry-level systems that are seeing NVMe storage in there. The Power Mac supporting end-to-end NVMe, end-to-end SCM, huge increase of IOPS, 7 to 8x over SSD. Impressive benefits. Ton of exciting things going on out there. Happy to see where this space is going to go in the next year and 2 years.
Sure. Now, what we don't typically see companies, unless they're pretty small, standardize on one platform. We see them, maybe grab a couple, in some cases, more than two. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in that regard, companies using multiple platforms?
Yeah, it's hard to find, the Swiss Army knife to have one system that does it all, but I would say Dell comes pretty close to it. But we're seeing a lot of customers, they're putting Power Maxes in their environment to handle their very heavy, super IO intensive loads. And then for the rest of the environment, they're throwing in hyperconverged, VxRail. You're also looking at, file object, you're seeing Isilon for a lot of that stuff. You can get the right performance for the right price. You get all the availability that comes with it.
Definitely a big key, right? How do you balance, the price of technology versus, what you're going to get from it. So, certainly when you have lots of options, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the power of the hardware is pretty incredible, but think about, how IT professionals are able to manage all these things today, right? Back in the day, it was a single server application OS, and that became 10 to 15, then that became 40 or more VMs. And now that's even going to get even more crazy when you think about some of the new server core counts and memory that we can pack into these things. That's a lot to manage. So can you talk a little bit about how customers are going to be able to manage these more powerful systems that can run a heck of a lot more workloads?
Yeah, ease of use, that's huge. When we talk to customers all the time, everyone wants to say, they want to do a lot more with a lot less. You want to see GUIs that are making use of HTML5 and not some of the older systems you're seeing with Flash and different things like that. And as much as we still have these purists that love command line, the need for it is definitely vastly disappearing. You can do everything you can inside of a GUI. And they're automated too. A lot of these systems, they're smart. You just have a single pool of disks where in the past you had, multiple pools and multiple tiering. You'd have to set up different things in order for you to do backups, in order for you to do snapshots. All the stuff now, it's all automated. The cache, automatically adjusts for you. The system's smart enough to know exactly what to do. There's a tremendous amount of stuff. If you take a look at what VMware is doing and how storage integrates with VMware and how it's more education so that it knows, hey, it looks like you're doing a database query right now. I'm going to throw in the rest of the database into the cache right now, so that way you can quickly access it as those queries happen. So you're seeing a ton of stuff there. And then also with containers too, containers are becoming huge, being able to not just virtualize the whole entire OS, but virtualize applications and making use of containers with different things like Kubernetes, stuff like that. VMware does that for you. It's all integrated into a single place. You can manage hundreds of VMs and thousands of containers in just a single pane of glass.
The march forward has been started with discrete components. We moved to reference architectures to make the deployment management simpler, converged and HCI. And you also talked a little bit about automation. We're hearing a bunch about autonomous systems. What are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, that's a great question, LV. We're seeing software-defined storage is becoming huge. Technologies like VMware's vSAN. So instead of actually, having a discrete storage array, the storage is actually the server. The server is the storage. You're seeing, a bunch of technologies like that. VxRail comes to mind. talked about before, there's a tremendous amount of stuff we're seeing going data centers everywhere where you don't need a storage array anymore. Everything can be done, right from embedded disk drives right on the servers. Different things about being able to tier to the cloud, for example. In the past, if you needed to do cloud tiering, you had to bring in, different products, different pieces of hardware, additional software. All this stuff is native now. All you got to do is point it to like a bucket of storage out in the cloud, and it just becomes another tier that data can drop out to, and you can archive data to natively without a second thought. Just a few mouse clicks and it's taken care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in general, I used to think about storage, and I spent a decade at EMC prior to the Dell acquisition. And for us, storage was always, block and file. Just talk a little bit about the different platforms and where they might be applicable.
Yeah, we're seeing scale out file and object. Isilon, for example, you can scale out infinitively. You can have, well over 100 different nodes and petabytes of storage. And it's going speeds faster than ever before. You're seeing 40 gig, 100 gig, different protocols like NFS v4. So the amount of stuff and the amount of technology that's out there it's extremely impressive, and just the ability just to cram it into smaller devices, kind of like you opened with in the beginning. The different things that would take up whole entire data centers now are just going into just 1 and 2 racks. So there's a ton of different things we can do in that space.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, as you can hear, storage has changed a lot in the last decade. Instead of spending your entire career specializing on just storage, nowadays, most storage administrators aren't really storage administrators anymore. They're managing compute, they're managing VMware, they're managing backup, among other things. And there's lots of platforms, as Mike and I just talked about, lots of great choices. And if you happen to be wondering which choice is most applicable to you and your workloads, then reach out. We're here to help. We specialize in the entire portfolio. And at Focus Technologies, we'd love to be able to help you figure out, what the right platform is for you.